Okay, we are in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I drove, I left Kanab, Utah at, I want to say about 11:30 a.m., 11:30, 12, and I got to Albuquerque at about 11:30. I chose to go that route rather than go over the Rocky Mountain range, considering it might have been icy and snowy and dark, and also the elevation on my vehicle. I bottom line couldn't trust Ramses in Kanab, Utah. Although the guy, I think his name is Nick, who gave me the original tow, and showed up super fast and was just super nice and everything. And I don't really necessarily blame them for the amount of time it took for the entire driveline to be built, because of parts being, possibly difficult to find because of it being the Isuzu Roto. Um, that did give them ample amount of time to fuck with my vehicle. And my vehicle does reek like male BO. And that would indicate someone spent a substantial amount of time inside the vehicle, which wouldn't make sense. So I really couldn't trust what happened at Ramsey's, and I had requested repeatedly that they do a overall inspection of the vehicle, to let me know if mechanically it was sound, and letting them know that I was going to be taking off and driving long distances. And in the beginning, they kept saying, yeah, that was totally, yep, we'll do that. Yep, I'll make sure that gets done. And I said it repeatedly, didn't want to be too annoying, but at the same time, I wanted to make it clear that I wanted that done. However, when they said that the driveline was ready to go and available, I asked again, so did you do the overall inspection? And then I got an answer that was, well, he drove it into the space to be able to get to do the driveline, and everything seemed fine. And I was like, that's not an overall inspection. Oh, well, you can't really, with these old vehicles, it's just, you see, you're not going to know anything until something happens. And it's like, I'm pretty sure in 2021 that numerous mechanics actually probably perform overall maintenance or performance on vehicles for people who want to buy a used vehicle. Um, so, because that's what you're told, what I should have done when I bought it from Alex at AutoX was have it be examined by another mechanic, to let me know what the issues might be that come up. It's not unusual, and it's pretty standard at this point in, our society. So the fact that they basically were acting like that was something impossible to do and that nobody ever requests to have an older vehicle looked at was, and to see if it's mechanically sound, was a cop out. And so I don't really trust Ramsey's. I dropped a grand on doing the drive line there. He originally had said it would be like $200 to $400. And that was including the tow and then having to go pick up the drive line because apparently they weren't going to deliver it or something. So there was an additional cost for that. So yeah, that's what happened in Kanab, Utah. I'm so fucked up already. There's a lot of shit in the air over here in Santa Fe, Mexico. Santa Fe, New Mexico. The resident in Marriott. I was gang raped and sodomized in the cabin number 12 in Kanab, Utah. I'm going to repeat that again because that's what happened. My anus is actually still ripped. That could have happened last night. I drove all night. So that happened the second to last night. I was at the best friend's, either one of their facility stuff. The last night I was there, I was in the hotel, the Roadhouse in town. And there were quite a few people that had checked in with the sole purpose of participating. In fact, there was a big woman. She looked Native American, Native Hawaiian, something. Big woman in 202. And I think she was there primarily to participate in torturing me. That's just my gut feeling. And the boxes that they had sitting there outside of the room, which was weird. Don't see that very often. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen that when I've been in a hotel, that someone just leaves stuff on the lanai area outside of their room, outside of the door. It's not like there's not enough space inside. But the next morning, when I was up, and just the whole feeling, the people working there, everything, probably an in general feeling of disappointment from them that they weren't able to accomplish what they had planned to. And it was a rough night. The animals got really sick because there was just so much of that shit in the room and just coming out of the vents, coming out of everywhere. And despite having a window wide open, it did not dissipate, and the animals just felt sick. And I kept trying to take them out and give them air and, just let them have air. So along with my usual take on after being gang raped and sodomized, especially when they rip my asshole open, is to take off. I didn't choose to go get a rape kit done. I definitely contemplated it. She just had an enormous amount of time with me, and I felt very sick, like sicker than I normally have felt. I had just a searing headache, and all the regular normal things were just really sore. My arm, my feet, my finger that she loves, and she's also going after this finger, which, there you go, fuck you, bitch. And yeah, it was brutal, and she spent a lot of time on my uterus. That would be my guess, because of the enormous amount of pain coming from that and the familiarity of that pain that I was experiencing when this first started in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I had a good OB that I trusted that I could go see on a regular basis, and I did, and she was not finding a shit ton of stuff in my vagina for the amount of excruciating pain, but she was finding always irritation on my cervix. And when she'd touch it, it was like, again, I've said this before, it was like putting a hot poker on it. Obviously, this girl is going into my uterus, and she's done such an extensive amount of damage now that even when they don't get to me, I don't get my period. Whereas for the first probably year and a half, if I could stay away from them and not have her get to my uterus or my vagina or whatever, I would be able to, my period would start. And that was one thing that my OB, Dr. Yamada, tried to figure out, was why I wasn't getting my period. And I knew why, because this crazy bitch was searing my uterus to shit. And that, again, that came, my conclusion on that came from this long burn mark that was on the outside of my vagina. She obviously, whatever she used inside my uterus, she accidentally laid down on the outside of my vagina. And from the pain, and from realizing that, with the anesthetic that they're using, that she could do that. And I'm sure she thinks that's super fun, because she's insane. I didn't notice my eyes right now. That's from what's been in here all day long already. It got really kind of potent and thick, and then I took off with them and did some errands, and then came back, and it was really bad in here. Undoubtedly, they were in here. I arrived in Albuquerque at like I said, about 11 p.m. And the ones that I'd put into, when I just put pet friendly into Google, it led me to this area that was just, which seemed a little contrived on their part with maybe my phone, because it only showed like 3 places, and I arrived to this like super ghetto, like where she'd live and breathe and just thrive, of like drug addicts and just low class criminal everywhere, bullshit, disgusting people. And I was like, holy fuck. And I was like, I ain't fucking staying in any of these fucking places. I'll get fucking super gang raped by all these insane fucking nasty ass pieces of shit. But then I put it in Google again when I was in that area, and there came up a ton. But sadly, after searching for probably about an hour, going to different hotels, calling, everybody was booked. Now, whether that was really true, it's hard to know. I'm guessing it must have been because everybody was. At first, I was like, oh, they did this, but it's hard to know all the time what they do and what they don't participate in. Right now, it's super thick in the air. It's bothering my eyes a lot. I don't know if you can see the glassiness and whatever irritation coating in my eyeballs. But yeah. So I then looked outside of Albuquerque for a place to stay. I was super exhausted. I'd been driving for 12 hours for a drive that should have taken 7. But it was a slow go, and the vehicle doesn't sound all that great. Whatever they did to it, I'm sure they did something else. So they're just going to keep fucking with my shit. Because they're desperate pieces of shit. That's why. Desperate losers that have nothing else to do. But then I had to look outside, and Santa Fe was kind of like the next town on the way to where I'm trying to head, and but it was an hour away. And for me, I called, and they had a place, and I didn't want to do that, but because of all of the bookings and everything, I was worried as soon as he said that they had a place that if I didn't say, okay, I'm coming, then. But then, of course, they had that lead time to get there, and it didn't actually take me that long. I think it only took me maybe an hour and a half or an hour and 15, 20 minutes or something. Actually went pretty quick. I was like pretty on wanting to get here already and get the animals out of the vehicle. They were pretty bummed. Oh yes, and to note, the entire drive, the 12 hours that it took me to get, they had repeatedly passed me. At one point, I had to make a right turn, and they must have felt like maybe there was a chance I might go a different way at that point, because there was, I'm sure, crazy bitch in a red SUV with a bunch of other people, and then a guard, their backup, which is that seems to be common now. Some rough looking cartel fucking whatever dude sitting in a truck, and they were just sitting there waiting at the that spot, the intersection. And then they fell in line and followed me, and but the entire time they were pelting stuff at my fucking car. And usually it just sounds like, it sounds like I've explained before, it sounds like pebbles or little rocks. And this time I had popped open that little teeny window that you can sort of just pop open, roll it down. It's like in the corner by the dash. I'd pop that open on the dog side in order to get some air in, because of course it was coming through the filtered, the system, like the AC or the heat or whatever, just a ton, and of course I expected that, because at Ramsey's they would have done that. So I was trying to kind of dissipate it, and interesting enough, usually they try to hit the windshield or the wheel well, which is, or the side, I'm not sure, I can't really tell, but near the windows, and they usually hit the front windshield. And this time they actually put it right through the window, and I saw it for the first time, and it indeed was like this brown little rock looking thing. Sadly, it went straight into the vent that's on my dashboard. And then it just this right in our faces. And they kept doing that the entire time. They had people driving by. One guy just pulled off on the side of the road and waited for me to come by, and then fell in line behind me, and then pulled up alongside me and went for that open window. At some point, I pulled over and adjusted the angle of it to try to prevent them from being able to just, because they did that a couple times. And I was a little worried about Vita, because that was her side, and trying to get her fresh oxygen was proving to be difficult because of their psychopathic behavior. Um, so yeah, I did call the police at one point and say this vehicle has repeatedly like passed me and pelted shit at my vehicle. Of course, that's difficult to explain because there's no like, you know, what is it that they're pelting? Something toxic, you know. The mention of the cartel seemed to interest them. I'm guessing New Mexico is a cartel big time place. From being here, just going out today, and then what I saw in that first area where all the just a very high level of criminality, and I could sense a very lack of fear with the police. And that would mean one of two things, or both, is that they have an incredible amount of police in their pocket, probably, and that they just don't have any fear of them at all. So, you know, just which is when you sense that you know that the level of criminality where you are is extremely high, and they've accomplished a lot, and that they undoubtedly have people at the police department, and probably in a good number, which is disappointing. Because I do want to note is in my experience of going into town and getting some food and, you know, just having very minimal interactions with people, but I do like to talk to people because I like to kind of get the feeling of where I'm at. And, you know, just, I mean, I've never been here before. And my sense is actually that the people of like New Mexico, at least Santa Fe, are nice people. You know, and you don't, like Portland, I didn't ever get that sense. Even when I lived there, it was like, I don't know. They just didn't seem very nice. But here, I get the vibe that there's some really nice people that live in this town. Sadly, I also get the vibe that there's a lot of criminals here, and they've probably just proliferated and taken over this state. So there's that. Anyhow, so we ended up at the Resident Inn Marriott in Santa Fe, and I got it for a second night just because I literally just walked into the room last night, took my shoes off and my sweater, and crawled into bed. I was so fucking tired. I'd stayed up all night the night before, and then so she had a great deal of time with me because when I got here, what was odd was when I went to check in, he had said when I called, they had a couple places and not to worry because there wouldn't be anybody checking in. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. They don't expect people to roll in, you know. It's just not common. Most people have a plan. I'm not getting to live like that. So anyhow, but then I got there and he's like, "Oh, you have the last room," and I was like, "Oh," because I asked. I was like, "Did anybody else check in like in the last hour?" You know, and he was being very evasive, and I was like, "Oh, you heard that noise? That's her. She's up here. I'll show you." Which is a bummer that I saw this when I came in. Here you go. And if you look closely enough, actually, it's been unsealed everywhere where the paint, even that area that looks like the paint is sealed it over, it's not. Someone's cut it open. So, anyhow, he was being evasive, vague, and just, I don't know. I just didn't get a good vibe. I was like, that sucks. But exhausted, tired, and the animals, and just whatever. So, and we came in here to the Resident Inn, and first of all, it smelled awful, which sucked. These places are actually set up for, and I don't like staying at these places. I've stayed at a Resident Inn before, had a bad experience. Not one of the horrific ones. This is a weird thing. This doesn't open. I'm wondering if the water heater's in there, but usually they open because they don't think anyone gives a shit about it, right? They're not going to destroy their own water heater. But what I don't like about these places are because they're set up like basically apartments. They got the full kitchen, full everything, desk, couch, dining area, everything. The people that tend to stay in these places tend to not be good, and in general, they're in bad situations, and that creates opportunity for people like this to go to those kind of people because they're not in good situations if they're living here. And anyhow, so we got here, and immediately before I passed out, I heard noises coming from up above. I heard them tossing those little pebble things right onto this like thing right here. I went to here and tried to turn off the fan, which I tried to do today. You can clearly see that there is a off button, and it's in that position, and it wouldn't turn off. And I tried to do everything to try to make it, because there was just shit fucking blowing down at us. I opened the door. Luckily enough, we have. It's actually good they put us on the second floor in that way. I used to think the second floor was better because what they would do is rent the room above me, and then I could hear them doing all kind of shit. But now I realize that pretty much every single one of these has attic spaces, and then they just go into that. And I think they actually like that better, because whatever they do up there, they're not going to be seen. So I'm 100% sure she got to me last night. I'm pretty sure she didn't get to bring in a whole bunch of people because it just wasn't very planned out. And they didn't know where I was going to be. I don't know that for sure. My asshole is bleeding this morning, and it's extremely painful. So is my vagina. I think she did. She really fucked me up in that cabin. She just did it for way too long. She was just way too ready to just, that's her. She just was. She was, I could, it's just like, because she didn't get a ton of time with me for a couple days. So she was just ready, and I think that she overdid it and kept me under for way too long. And who knows? Maybe I died and she brought me back to life again. She's done that before. So, because I really, really felt bad, which was shitty, because then I had to stay up all night the next night because I didn't want to be raped and sodomized at the Roadhouse, Best Friends Animal Sanctuary Hotel. Cleaning staff, definitely the Hispanic younger male with the baggy pants, definitely him. But I would say that most of them knew, most of them, if not all of them. And how many of the staff actually knew that sit behind the counter and stuff, I don't know. Who knows? Right now, there's a ton of shit in the air. She's up there right now, cruising around, getting ready to try to rape and sodomize me and torture my body for the millionth time because she has nothing better to do with her fucking pathetic ass life. Pathetic bitch. And you can see it in the animals already. They just are knocked the fuck out. We didn't do shit today. But you can see it in their eyes already. They're red and glassy. They started twitching and everything as soon as I felt it really coming down. This level of exhaustion is awfully strange considering we spent all day in the car yesterday and today I did nothing because I need to recover. But tonight, battle on. She'll try to just whatever, and I do not feel any doubt that I feel like I'm going to call the cops tonight because no longer am I going to feel bad. I'm going to go, I'm not going to say what I'm going to do because they're going to plan for it. The cops are probably corrupt, but we'll see. So, that's it. That's where we are now. Saw some interesting stuff while driving through Arizona. Did not stop except for gas. I'd say some interesting stuff, mostly like some pretty harsh land living conditions, I'd say, and a lot of stray dogs. Reminded me of being in Argentina. A lot of stray dogs, and that made me sad. Seeing a lot of dogs just roaming around and, at gas stations and whatever. So it does kind of speak to probably the population and people that live there. They just don't believe in, that's something you'd see in Mexico. And just Mexico going south. There's just, what I saw in Argentina, I remember, was just very similar to what we had in Hawaii, which is a plethora of cats. A lot of stray cats, but they have a lot of stray dogs. And dogs are not as, they just get hit by cars more. Because they're just, yeah. Anyhow, look at my eyes. I slept for at least, let's see, from about 2 to 8. So she had about 5 or 6 hours with me. And then I passed out again for a couple more hours. So I definitely got 8 hours of sleep, but look at my eyes. Look how drugged I am. Fun.